There are moments in a woman's life that seem destined to be etched into her heart with the gentle lines of happiness, only to be seared red-hot by humiliation and betrayal. The moment she walks into the sanctuary, people rise to applaud. Light of every color pours through stained glass onto her dress, and the man she loves waits at the end of the aisle. Every step is strewn with petals as if leading to heaven, until the groom's first words turn the holy place into hell. Some stabbings don't come from behind. They come straight to your face, beneath God's feet, before 300 people, and leave a scar nothing can erase. Street Augustine's bells rang in pure measure, rippling through a soft gold afternoon in Savannah, Georgia. Early autumn felt like God himself had washed it clean, cloudless sky, sunlight flooding the church's vaulted stained glass, everything shimmering like a sacred dream. Alina Hartley stood at the nave, wearing the classic wedding gown passed down through 4 generations of Hartley women, a dress of ivory silk, studded with hundreds of real pearls. So exquisitely sewn it seemed to stitch the family's history into every seam. Her thick black hair was coiled up, a lace veil fell lightly over her face, and in her hands a bouquet of white lilies and baby's breath trembled with each breath, not only from emotion, from something off. At the far end of the long aisle, strewn with petals, stood Bradley Whitmore, only son of one of the South's most powerful dynasties. In a bespoke Milan suit, the stained light ringed his cropped blonde hair like a halo, but his grey eyes that should have been fixed on her, were looking elsewhere. He isn't looking at me, Alina realized. A chill crawled down her spine, thin as spider silk, sharp as a razor. Her fingers tightened on the bouquet. Her heart pounded, whether from nerves or some dim intuition knocking at the door. She couldn't tell. "You look like a queen, baby." Ruby Hartley, 82, rasped with love as she adjusted the veil. "Your great-grandmother would be so proud." "I hope so," Alina whispered, her voice unsteady. The great doors swung open. The strings began canon in D. Social royalty from the South turned as the bride stepped onto the red runner. With every step, the weight of expectation pressed heavier. Or was it she who was forcing herself to carry a dream? Because inside her lay a secret. A 12-week life. A miracle between her and the man at the altar, or so she had believed. Alina strolled between pews of dark mahogany, dressed in white silk, eyes tracking her with admiration, envy, and curiosity. From Wall Street bankers to a former Georgia senator, everyone was there, not just to witness a wedding, but the social event of the year. A merger of 2 southeastern empires, the Hartleys of publishing and the Whitmores, titans of luxury real estate. And she, Alina Hartley, the only black woman ever to step this deep into the world of old-blood white dynasties. Alina noticed a small blonde woman in an emerald-green dress near the front pew. The woman tilted her head and smiled lightly, without kindness. Her gaze locked onto Bradley like someone eyeing property she already owned. And in that moment, Alina knew. She couldn't name the feeling. But she knew. Father Charles began, his voice rolling beneath the vaults. "We gather today in God's holy light to witness the lifelong union of Bradley Marcus Whitmore and Alina Rose Hartley." The words lifted like a hymn guiding her toward fate, when suddenly, wait, the voice sliced the air like a cold blade. Hard, sharp, unyielding. Everything stopped. The strings died. Ruby's hand went rigid. Alina's bouquet slipped and struck the marble with a soft burst white lilies, shattering like summer snow. She turned to Bradley. He stepped down from the chancel, his face eerily calm. I can't do this," he said. "I'm standing here today to tell the truth." No one breathed. Alina's mind went blank, as if it refused any more input. But her heart was breaking shard by glass shard, and still beating, and still beating, and still beating. She Bradley pointed to the blonde in the emerald dress in the first row. "She's the woman I love. The one I choose to build a life with." A hive of whispers erupted. Guests clapped their hands to their mouths. Others raised their phones. The woman stood and walked forward with runway certainty, heels ticking on stone like a countdown to a dream's end. Camilla Rhodes, a young entrepreneur known for ties to European luxury fashion houses and Bradley Whitmore's Mistress, according to tabloids. For months, Alina didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't collapse. Instead, she smiled. A small smile, just enough to shove the church into a dead silence. "You want the truth?" she asked. Her voice was clear, each word knife-sharp, carrying to the dome. "So do we." She gently laid a hand on her belly, like a private greeting to the tiny life within. "I'm pregnant," she said. 3 months. A collective gasp. Someone sprang to their feet. Camilla flinched half a step. "It's yours, Bradley." Alina met his eyes. "And under the prenup you forced me to sign, any child born of this marriage automatically holds 40% of Whitmore Industries and voting rights on all strategic decisions from birth." The air detonated. Shouts, cries, phones recording in a staccato storm. Bradley blanched. Camilla froze. Her eyes flicked like someone hunting for an exit. In that instant, amid chaos, Alina turned. The veil floated behind her like the curtain at the end of a disastrous performance. "This wedding is over," she said. "But my life and my child's is just beginning." And she walked away. Her bridal heels struck the stone, step by steady step. No tears, no cheap theatrics. Only a woman with a spine straight as a blade leaving the church she once believed would begin forever. Ruby waited by the limo, arms outstretched, hands lined by time. "Come on, baby," she said, folding Alina into an embrace heavy with the strength and love of 3 generations of Southern women who had outlasted segregation, cruelty, and loss. In the car, Alina looked back through the glass. Street Augustine shrank in her gaze. She didn't see stone, or cross, or stained glass. She saw promises shattering like crystal beneath the heel of truth. Inside her, the son, who had not yet been born, had already become a symbol of rebirth. 3 months after the earthquake at Street Augustine, the Southern business set was still whispering about the wedding that blew up mid-ceremony. Tabloids kept recycling photos of Alina Hartley, once branded the unlucky bride, now christened with a new moniker, the Queen who walked away. For Alina, rumor was nothing compared to reality. Her reality was a narrow shotgun house tucked into New Orleans' French Quarter red brick, wooden porch, slim hallway, vines climbing the railing. Old enough that when night rain tapped the tin roof, she could hear the city breathing and her own. The kitchen was the house's heart, and each morning when hand-brewed coffee braided with cinnamon and fresh pastry, life began again. "You have to eat breakfast, even if you throw it up." Ruby rapped the lid of the cast-iron pot, voice like a field commander. Alina stood before the tiny bathroom mirror. The glass was scratched, the porcelain nicked, but the reflection was clear. A thinner woman, eyes deeper, set yet her brown gaze still burned. 3 months pregnant and living with a very public humiliation hadn't broken her. They'd honed her into a weapon. Outside, the morning paper waited on the stoop. The business section's subcover blared. "Whitmore Industries faces investor unrest after a public scandal." Alina's mouth twitched. She knew where that leak came from. She felt no pity. She felt awake. At exactly 8 a.m., the doorbell rang. A woman stepped onto the porch, black hair in a high knot, grey shirt, pencil skirt, Oxford shoes, a leather briefcase in one hand, a cool gaze in her eyes. "Good morning, Miss Hartley," she said, wasting no time. "I'm Thalian Wynne, prenuptial and asset counsel, and I have good news." The Hartley kitchen became an impromptu conference room. A peach pie steamed beside a brick of files. DNA confirms it. Bradley Whitmore is the biological father, and the prenup he forced you to sign, Thalia looked up straight on, is valid. No loopholes, no side letters. Your child will hold 40% of Whitmore Industries from his first cry. Ruby folded her arms and nodded slowly. So Alina's son carries not just blood but power. Yes, Thalia said, and he never saw it coming. And custody? Alina asked, voice steady to the point of cold. If he hasn't acknowledged paternity and hasn't provided support, he has no rights. I've already filed for a temporary no visitation order. He gets no say until he behaves like a father. Alina rested a hand on her belly. The unborn child was already a silent fighter in the war between truth and deceit. The bell rang again this time. A man, dust on his leather shoes, dark coat, brown hair a little untidy. He stood like someone who had carried a sentence for too many nights without speaking it. "Alina, I know I shouldn't have come, but I needed to know if you're all right." Grayson Cole, former business partner and once friend of Bradley. Alina leaned on the doorframe, eyes on him. "I was publicly humiliated. I'm pregnant, and I have to eat my grandmother's pastries every morning. What do you think?" Grayson lowered his head. "I didn't know Bradley was that bad. Selfish, yes, but doing that, in front of hundreds? You used to be his partner." Her voice was neither sharp nor soft. "I'm not anymore," he said. "I dissolved the partnership the next day, and I'm the attesting witness on the prenup, the one your lawyer declined to name." Alina paused. "You knew every clause and still stood with me. Right is right, wrong is wrong, even if it costs." "How much did you lose?" she asked bluntly. "About 60 million. He met her eyes. No flinching, no swagger. Silence spread. Only the crisp crust crackled as Ruby sliced the pie into 8 with a rolling cutter. "Why?" Alina asked. Grayson's shrug was slight. "Because I was a cowardly jerk for letting someone like you walk into Bradley's life and doing nothing to stop the fallout. And because you deserve someone in your corner." The next day, Alina stood in a battered storefront on Royal Street peeling walls, a dead stove, dust-grimed windows. She set her hand on a chipped wooden counter, her eyes lit. "This will be my kitchen, the empire I built for my child." "Are you sure?" Ruby asked. "Starting a business at 4 months? No one builds empires under ideal conditions," Alina said. "My child will know his mother didn't wait for someone to clear the road." She opened a notebook, recipes, a business plan, numbers, everything she had left after the cancelled wedding besides herself. A few days later, a truck pulled up. A deliveryman appeared, cradling a bouquet of white lilies and baby's breath as big as half his body. "From Grayson Cole," he said. The card read, "For a new beginning and the courage to rebuild." Alina looked at the flowers, the same kind as her wedding bouquet, but stripped of a betrayer's vows. This time, they were a blessing from someone who didn't have to be there, and chose to stay. "Sometimes strangers see more clearly than kin," Ruby said quietly. Alina said nothing, but she felt it for the first time in months. She was no longer alone in the fight. And that, precisely, was when the real danger for Bradley began, because a solitary woman can be a flame. A woman with purpose and allies. A storm. New Orleans was in a storm. Not the kind that crawls across a Doppler map, but the old southern kind, quietly gathering in the belly of the sky, then dropping all at once with the fury of the earth itself, as if God were roaring at souls who'd betrayed the good. At 3:17 a.m., Alina Hartley, simple cotton nightgown, hair slick with sweat, face gone pale, clung to the kitchen counter like the last rampart on a battlefield. The catering contracts she'd signed the night before still fanned across the table. An oil lamp jittered in the corner. Each contraction hit like a fist to the gut, urgent and brutal as destiny's nudge. It was time. "Mom," she called, her voice the first crack of thunder across the dark. Ruby, a woman who had once caught her daughter with the same hands that hemmed the family wedding dress, needed no explanation. In under 2 minutes, she'd called an ambulance, grabbed the go-bag, and wrapped her arms around her grandchild, to be the way you gird a young soldier for a first battle not to win, but to found a line. Cassian James Hartley arrived at 12:04 p.m., to the howl of gale winds and thunder hammering the hospital windows like a mythic drumline. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, deep brown eyes, a stubborn little chin that made Ruby say at once, "Spitting image of old Mr. Hartley, hard-headed since the womb." When the doctor set him on Alina's chest, she didn't cry like the mothers on TV. She looked at him like a person looks at the impossible after making it possible, as if she had just delivered an empire. "Cassian," she whispered, fingertips trembling over his soft crown. "An old name, Roman at the root. Like the empire we'll build, my son." "Cassian James Hartley," Ruby echoed, her voice like an old hymn, heavy enough that the wind won't carry it off, soft enough to lodge in a heart. At 4 p.m., with sunlight jeweling through the window, a nurse walked in with a massive bouquet, white and sky blue blooms laced with pale lavender, arranged so perfectly it could have stepped out of a couture wedding book. From a Mr. Grayson Cole, the nurse smiled. "There's a card." Alina opened it, still cradling Cassian. "Welcome to the world, Cassian. May you grow knowing some people choose the right thing, not because it's easy, but because it's right. G.C." Ruby folded her arms and nodded. That man didn't just send flowers. He sent faith. 2 days later, Alina woke to the staccato of heels in the hallway. She'd barely pushed herself up when the door swung open. Bradley Whitmore walked in gaunter, a shave gone to stubble, grey eyes hollow like a man who'd crossed a desert without water. Behind him, Camilla Rhodes, in a jade bodycon dress, designer stilettos, and a gaze as cold as a European winter. "Where's my child?" Bradley rasped. Alina drew Cassian closer, not from fear instinct. "Your child," her mouth crooked. "I remember perfectly when you refused to acknowledge me as your wife in front of God and 300 people. And now you want to play father?" "DNA's confirmed. I have rights." He raised his voice a notch too high, as if volume might plug the fear gnawing at him. The door opened again. Thalia Nguyen stepped in with a folder, face calm, eyes sharp as a Japanese blade. "Under Louisiana law," she said, slow and clear, "an unmarried biological father who hasn't publicly acknowledged the child and hasn't provided support has no legal rights to the baby." Color climbed Bradley's neck. Camilla exhaled, annoyed. "What a joke." "Careful, Miss Rhodes," Thalia cut in. "Interfere with this process and we'll pursue charges for custodial interference." Cassian stirred, 3 days old, and opened his eyes at Bradley. In that small, stale room, in air thick with old varnish and new anger, a baby's gaze went clean through the man who had once been the axis of Alina's world and found nothing. No warmth, no tether, just a stranger. "You know," Ruby said, rising like a matriarch to her full height, "that chin is all Hartley. Doesn't owe Whitmore a thing. We don't need either of you to tell us our blood." Bradley faltered a step. Camilla tugged his sleeve. "Let's go." This show's played out. When the door clicked shut, Alina let out a long breath. "Would you like me to file for an emergency no-contact order?" Thalia asked. "Not yet." Alina looked down at her son already asleep again. Tiny hand latched to her like it had gripped her heart. "I think he'll self-destruct soon enough." That evening, Grayson stopped by with a handcrafted wooden rocker, a welcome for Cassian. Alina met him on the hospital porch. "You okay?" he asked. "No bouquets, no flourish." "Okay," she said. "Or at least, learning how to be." They settled Cassian into the cushioned rocker. Late light pooled over his small face, wrapping him in a hush that looked like a blessing. Grayson set a palm to the chair's back and began to rock. "This little boy," he murmured, "will change everything." "This little boy," Alina murmured, "has already changed me." 4 months after the churchquake, New Orleans had 2 faces glittering on the main drags, hushed and tender in the alleys where real life happens. In the little shotgun house on Trem where Alina and Cassian lived with Ruby, the morning air filled with browned butter, flour, and warm cinnamon, not just to feed 2 mouths, but to bankroll something bigger: freedom. Alina didn't only bake. She wrote a strategy, broke down cost sheets, logged every bit of customer feedback. Each pecan shortbread dusted with sea salt, each passionfruit pie set on a plate like a solved equation, every piece part of her plan to redefine herself. Ruby's table, the name she chose for the shop, was a quiet bow to the woman who'd stitched 4 generations of Hartley wedding gowns and was now rocking a grandbaby so her daughter could rewrite a life. One morning, as sunlight slipped through the white-painted sash windows, Aurelia Winters, a brown-skinned ex-pastry cook at Bywater's Garden, with a floral apron, summer in her eyes. "You posted for part-time help. I'm a single mum. I can bake. I need a chance. No more questions." "Start tomorrow," Alina said, "because women don't need pity. They need a sword and someone to trust them with it." Month 1, 10 orders, mostly neighbors. Month 2, 50. By month 3, Cassian had been 7 months. The books were full 6 weeks out for small events. Grayson Cole kept showing up, not on a schedule, Not with slick lines, just with acts. A used but solid industrial mixer. A new string of work lights for the back kitchen. No one said it aloud, but Ruby saw Alina's face each time Grayson lifted Cassian like he'd been born knowing how. No awkwardness. No distance. "You know," Ruby murmured one late afternoon while Alina zested orange into bourbon cookie dough, "some men buy things out of duty, some out of the courting. Grayson brings things like they belong here." Alina didn't answer. Her hand trembled a touch on the mixing bowl. A week later, a delivery arrived. Baby's breath and white camellias. The card read, "Not to replace what was, but to say this. The new can begin without destroying the memory. G.C." When Cassian turned 9 months, Alina stood in the Ruby's table kitchen with a grey cotton apron on and an order book in hand. 3 significant corporate events out of Baton Rouge. A cocktail reception for the local bank. A women in business conference needing 200 lemon tarts. She exhaled not from fatigue, but wonder. She was doing it. No Whitmores, no wedding, no promises. Just herself, her child, her grandmother, and a quiet ally. That afternoon, Grayson dropped by with a hand-carved wooden truck. The wheels rolled, the mahogany grain gleamed, and the cab was etched. "C.J.H. For Cassian," he said. Found it in an old lakeside shop. Felt like it was waiting to be found. Alina took it. Cassian squealed. And in that moment, she understood. Some gifts can't be wrapped like patience, like presents without conditions. Cradling Cassian in one arm, Grayson flipped a tart tin with the other to check the caramelization. "Growing faster than you expected," he teased, warm and dry. "Yeah," Alina said without turning. "And I'm not stopping here." "Good. Because Bradley's going under." His tone shifted. Alina looked up. "Whitmore Industries is drowning in bad debt. 3 major investors are already out. Rumor is they'll sell core assets within 3 months to avoid collapse." After he left, Alina called Thalia. The lawyer was blunt. "If he liquidates, Cassian's stake gets eroded. But if we buy shares from the fleeing investors, we could take control." "How much?" "A few million. More than you have. Less than what the company's worth if it's salvaged." She stood in the shop doorway, facing Bourbon Street as the lights came up. People laughed, danced, drank, unaware that somewhere inside this city a mother was staring down the largest fight of her life. That night, Grayson returned with black coffee, beignets, and an investment plan. "Listen," he said, "I've got enough capital to buy out at least 2 major holders. If you're in, we can secure control not just to protect Cassian, but to scrub what Bradley poisoned." "You'd do that for Cassian?" "For both of you," he said. "For the future. And because some things should be handed to the person who'll build them right. Success isn't a bang. Sometimes it's just the soft tick of a spoon on porcelain in a budget meeting." That's what Alina learns nearly a year into running Ruby's table. At 28, she isn't just a black single mom in New Orleans. She's the CEO of a growing business and holder of over 40% in a 9-figure conglomerate, and the only woman willing to stare down the South's old money machine without bowing. Every morning, she still ties on an apron, not for lack of staff, but because it's how she governs the fire inside, never loud, never showy, always burning. Cassian, almost 2, can wriggle into his overalls by himself. Bright eyes, stubborn chin, a scary memory for sea salt butter cookies. "Mama, this cookie's different from yesterday," he once declared because Alina forgot a pinch of lemon zest. One March afternoon, Grayson Cole shows up not with a gift, but with intel. He lays a state business paper on the kitchen table. "Whitmore Industries under investigation for accounting irregularities. Forensic review," he says, voice low. "One of Bradley's 3 new projects is fabricated cash flow for a bank loan." Alina sits, eyes steady. If they prove fraud, the board must move him out. And the person with the most voting power right now, he looks straight at her, is you. That day, Alina pulls a photocopy of the old prenup from the drawer beneath the stove. In bold, "All lineal heirs shall receive full voting rights to their inherited shares from birth until age 18. Herr Finger brauches Herr Signatur." Then Bradley's. The paper has yellowed. The leverage has not. That night, Cassian sleeps in his oak crib, hugging the wooden truck Grayson once brought. Alina sits at the table, grading documents with a red pen like a professor. A company can lose value, she murmurs. Trust cannot be priced. Grayson comes late, sleeves rolled, with iced coffee and a tired smile. 3 investor meetings today, he says. They're done with Bradley, but they're afraid you'll be too strong. Good, Alina answers. No. He settles in. They're afraid because they don't know what you want. Silence. Then, I don't want to burn Whitmore down, she says. I want to save it. Not for Bradley, for Cassian. When Cassian is 26 months, Grayson takes them to Lake Pontchartrain not to strategize, but to breathe. They sit by the water with grilled chicken sandwiches, watching kites dip and climb. Did you ever think you'd be a father? Alina asks. Grayson is quiet. He looks at Cassian looping around a wooden kite and says, No. But now, I can't imagine the world without him. The line lands like a slow arrow. No confession, no roses. She just showed up every day, every night whenever she needed to, without asking. And she starts to be afraid. Not that he'll leave, but that she'll start to lean. A week later, Thalia calls. Bradley wants to buy back shares. He's offering double the current price. Alina is silent. You're going to refuse? Thalia asks. No, Alina says. I'm going to show him the value of what he threw away. That evening, after story time, Alina steps onto the back porch. Grayson is there with a bourbon, looking up at the sky. She asks it plainly, Do you love Cassian? He meets her gaze, surprised, then smiles a little. There isn't a day I don't ask what I did right to deserve that kid. And me? He doesn't answer at once. He sets the glass down, crosses the space between them, and says, Alina, you are the quietest flame I've ever known. You don't make noise, but anyone who stands near you will never forget. New Orleans slips into the December rains, the French Quarter's old roofs slick with water and light, a hushed and warm picture. In a newly renovated 3-story on Magazine Street, Alina Hartley, now CEO of Hartley & Co., event sits buried in files for the biggest gala in the company's history, the Whitmore Foundation's Literacy Gala, an exquisite irony, staged by the very woman the Whitmore heir once humiliated at the altar, who now controls over 40% of their company. Cassian, 3.5, darting upstairs from the playroom to show off more claws he's drawn on his dragon, then vanishes again like a gust of wind. Grayson appears like he always does, no fuss, no knock, setting a hot coffee by Alina's elbow beside fresh Whitmore financials. This winter's colder than usual, he says, dropping into the chair opposite. But not as cold as your old company's books. Alina smirks, eyes never leaving a floral budget. You know what's strange, she says. I can run a major firm, and the thing that tightens my chest is the price of hydrangeas. Grayson laughs. That's what makes you different. Everyone else hunts billion-dollar deals. You worry a party might lack a soul. He flips open the state business paper, taps the headline. Whitmore offloading assets to stave off bankruptcy. Investors vote for leadership change. Bradley's desperate, Grayson says. Internal notes say he's trying to siphon money out of funds he doesn't directly control. His last card, Alina answers quietly. And he'll play it. At any cost. At 5 o'clock, Cassian tornadoes into the office clutching a book. Is Daddy Jude here yet? Alina freezes for a beat. She's never called Grayson Daddy Jude in front of Cassian, never taught him that. The boy chose it himself. Grayson smiles, scoops him up, and spins once through the room scented with paper and dried flowers. Daddy Jude's here, he grins. And I brought a new book, Dragons That Fly. Alina returns to the office after story time and lights out that night. Grayson is still there, desk lamp throwing lake green into his eyes like water before a storm. I once promised myself, she says, that no man would enter Cassian's life unless I knew he'd stay. And now? Grayson asks. Now. I realize you've been staying for a long time. She sits across from him, no armor, gloves, or guard. Do you know why I never dated again? He's silent, not surprised, just making room for something that matters. Because love once made me ashamed, she says. It turned me into a weak girl in front of the whole world. It made me cry so hard I couldn't lift my head. It made me doubt myself. Grayson leans in, but doesn't touch, sits closer, a quiet presence in reach. And I'm afraid, her voice thins, that if I open the door and he doesn't step in, I won't have the strength to close it again. Only then does Grayson rise. He circles behind her chair and places a warm hand on her shoulder, no rush or pressure. I'm not waiting for you to open the door, he says. I'm just here. You don't need someone to save you. You need someone who won't run when you're not strong. She turns. Their eyes meet, not fire, but light. Not a storm, but depth. Morning, Thalia calls. Bradley has offered to buy back Cassian's shares at a record price. Enough for you to live comfortably for the rest of your life. And in return, you lose control. He regains the CEO seat. Alina looks toward the porch, where Cassian is coloring a dragon with felt tips. A 3-year-old knows which dragon is bad and which is good, she says. So why can't adults? Grayson arrives with the bad news. If you don't pick up another 11% from the third group, Bradley can retool the board. How much? She asks. 10 million. He lowers his voice. Triple your cash. And you? She says, holding his gaze. What will you do? He doesn't blink. Put in everything I've got. House, stocks, personal funds. All of it. Are you sure? Her voice, for the first time, isn't a CEO's, it's a woman who knows she could cost a man everything. No, he says, smiling. But I'm sure of one thing. I love you and your boy. If there's a way to protect what you've built, I don't need to be sure about anything else. That night, in the wood-trimmed kitchen upstairs, Alina opens a bottle she saved from Cassian's birthday. Grayson lifts his glass. What are we toasting? She doesn't answer. She leans in and kisses him, not a promise, an acceptance. When they part, she murmurs, to what I once thought I didn't deserve, and to the man who came without knocking, Whitmore Industries HQ, 46th floor, Hartsfield Tower, Atlanta, February 27. Cold rain. Alina enters the marble lobby like a quiet front that no one can ignore. Charcoal suit, hair knotted high, eyes sharp as a laser cut. Beside her, Grayson in smoke, stone wool, and Cassian, 5, in a miniature vest, clutching his carved wood truck, stamped CJH. Employees fall silent, some nod, others stare. They know who just walked in, no longer the bride, no longer the abandoned. The mother of the company's largest shareholder, now holding 51% of the voting power after an unpublicized buy-up 3 weeks earlier. In the boardroom, 15 directors wait, Bradley at the head, Camilla behind him, a sleek panther straining the leash. The doors open. Alina's heels mark a metronome on the ebony floor. No introductions. She slides out a chair, sets down her bag, and sits directly across from Bradley. We can begin, she says, as if opening a breakfast menu. Thalia Nguyen, Counsel of Record, lays out the numbers. Hidden loans, illicit internal cash-outs, shell entities shifting investor money into Bradley's Tampa real estate. Camilla whispers in Bradley's ear. He snaps. This is a witch hunt, a political stunt to steal my chair in my own family's company. Alina barely smiles. From her bag, a faxed page with a red seal. The prenuptial agreement, she says. Your signature. Clause 9. In the event of financial fraud resulting in loss of shareholder confidence, the holder of the heir's shares shall decide whether the current CEO continues. Color drains from Bradley's face. A murmur flutters down the table. Grayson stands behind Alina, eyes never leaving Bradley, ready to spend himself on it, if this is the last fight. You want a scandal-ridden CEO, Alina asks, meeting each gaze in turn, or a company that survives. You want to keep a man who lied from the altar to the boardroom, or let my son, the sole heir, grow up knowing justice is a choice, not a privilege. The room freezes. Then a voice. I vote to remove Bradley. 1, then 2, then 4, then 9. 9 votes, an absolute majority. Bradley surges to his feet, palms slamming the table. You can't do this. No one throws me out of the company I built. You built nothing, Alina replies, voice clean as a scalpel. You inherited it, and you wrecked it with your own hands. And now, she holds his eyes. You lose because you never learned how to rebuild. Camilla slips out, leaving Bradley to the nail-hard stairs. She isn't loyal. She survives. Grayson's hand rests, light, on Alina's back. In the chair beside her, Cassian calmly colors a dragon-green wings this time. When the meeting ends, Alina lingers. She studies the cold room that once barred her child from his own legacy and now hosts a rewrite of the rules. That evening, on the New Orleans porch, Alina cradles a glass of red and a strategic plan. Grayson rocks a sleeping Cassian in his arms. "Do you know why I named him Cassian?" she asks. Grayson shakes his head. After a Roman general betrayed, defeated but never bowed, he squeezes her shoulder. "And you?" "I'm not Rome," she says. "I'm descended from women who baked out of ashes to feed a family. But now, I can lead an empire too." Grayson smiles. He's going to grow up proud. Alina looks back at him, no guard, no edge, only the calm of someone who finally believes she is loved, not for what anyone can take from her, but for who she island. New Orleans the following spring. Cassian turns 6. He can almost read fluently, and when Alina taps on his door for breakfast, he cracks it open and announces, "Mama, today I'm reading Charlotte's Web. Then I'm writing my story about a dragon who can't fly but writes poetry." Alina laughs. She once dreamed of this childhood for her son. Free, inventive, unafraid, unboxed. What she didn't expect was that she, too, would get to grow up again through his eyes. Ruby's Table is no longer a tiny bakery. It's a food events, culinary culture firm, profiled by Southern Essence as the standout woman-led, black-founded business phenomenon on the Gulf Coast. Alina no longer bakes every morning but still makes a batch of peach lavender tarts on Sundays, especially when Grayson shows up with a black coffee and the latest on the local property market. One Saturday afternoon, the doorbell rings while Cassian plays in the backyard. Alina wipes her hands, opens the door, and stops. Camilla Rhodes. Still beautiful, still elegant, but the gloss is gone. Her face is too hollow, and a brown leather tote is clutched in both hands. "Alina," Camilla begins, voice smaller than Alina has ever heard. "I know this is unexpected. I need to talk. Not about Bradley, not about the company, just about me and my child." Silence. Then Alina steps aside. She opens the door not because Camilla deserves it, but because Alina does. To listen without the weight of hate. On the rattan chair under the eaves, Camilla takes out a small frame, an ultrasound. 4 months, she says. I have nothing left, no reputation, no contracts, no friends. But I have this baby. Alina goes still. And I realize, Camilla continues, trembling, I chose the wrong person, moment, and way to live. I'm not here to ask for anything, only to say, if you can ever forgive me, know that I am sorry. Alina lays a hand over Camilla's belly. Her hand doesn't shake. Motherhood is a road no one is truly ready for, she says. But when we carry a child, our wounds change shape, and every mistake becomes a lesson if we're willing to learn. Camilla breaks down, not from weakness, but because finally she is seen as a person, not a part to play. When Camilla leaves, Grayson, who's been watering the backbeds, comes up with a glass of lemon water. She came to be forgiven? He asks. No, Alina says. She came to be seen as part of a future, not stapled to a past. After Cassian is asleep that night, Alina opens her laptop and writes to Thalia. Subject: Proposal for Women's Leadership Scholarship. Body: Allocate 5% of Ruby's Table's quarterly profits to establish a scholarship. Priority: single black mothers, women with prior records, or those pushed to the margins. Name it Cassian's Bridge. Because my son deserves a world where his mother doesn't have to fight alone. A week later, she announces the fund. The press asks, why? For whom? Does this have anything to do with Bradley? She only smiles. No, this isn't retaliation. I mix pain into cement, memory into brick, and forgiveness into the footing so I can build the world I want Cassian to live in. Grayson hoists Cassian on his shoulders and claps as she finishes. That night, with the house quiet, Alina threads her fingers through Grayson's and looks straight at him. "Do you know," she says softly, "that I once believed I couldn't love again?" "I know," he answers, "and I also know what you have isn't the capacity to love. It's the courage to love again." Alina rests her head on his shoulder. "I want to build a real home," she says. "Not just a house of wood. A shelter. And I want you in it if you still want to walk in." Grayson doesn't answer in words. He only squeezes her hand and kisses her forehead once a battlefield. Now, home. New Orleans, the first summer Cassian learns to swim. 6.5, sun-browned, curls springing wild, legs kicking shore in the backyard pool. Alina lounges on the chaise in a sheer white silk shirt, a new notebook in her hand. The second decade plan vision 2035. She isn't just sketching the future of Ruby's table. She's mapping an ecosystem of education, food, and social tech, born of the dreams she once had in a Charleston orphanage. Grayson steps onto the patio with iced tea and a fresh text message. Judge Harwood has granted the hearing on Cassian's name change. Alina takes the phone. Her fingers tremble. A name change. From Cassian James Hartley to Cassian James Monroe Hartley. "Do you think I should do it?" she asks. Grayson doesn't answer at once. He watches the boy shriek with delight, chasing an inflatable dinosaur. "I think he's had our name since the day he was born," he says. "No paper can prove what's already true," Alina exhales. "I'm not doing it because I need your name on a document. I want him to carry something built by love, not just inherited from a cracked bloodline." That night, she calls Ruby, now living close by, in the little apartment behind Ruby's table. "Mama," Alina says, "I'm going to change Cassian's name. Add Monroe. What do you think?" Silence. Then the soft clink of a spoon against a teacup, Ruby's sound for weighing something big. "I think this," Ruby says slowly. "A name is a coat. Pretty ain't as good as warm. Doesn't matter who stitched it. What matters is whether you feel like yourself when you put it on." The hearing in Orleans Parish is quiet. No spectacle. For Alina, it's the most emotional day of her life. Before Judge Harwood, a white man with silver hair and a fog-soft gaze, she holds Cassian in the center of the room. "Your reason for the change?" he asks. Alina squeezes her son's hand. Cassian looks up at her, then at the judge, eyes clear as glass. "Because I want my child to carry the legacy of choice," Alina says. "Not only where he was born, but where he was raised on trust, sacrifice, and kindness." "Is the child's father present?" the judge asks. "No," Alina says. "Is there someone who wishes to stand as a father in name?" Grayson steps forward. "I'm not replacing anyone, but I've been here since he was 3 months old, and I'll be here for all the years to come." The judge nods, then bends to Cassian. "Do you want to carry the name Monroe?" Cassian shrugs. "I want the name of the person who always knows I like peach tarts and plays Lego with me without getting mad." The room laughs. The gavel falls. "Approved. From this day, the child shall be known as Cassian James Monroe Hartley." On the drive home, a text from Thalia pings Alina's phone. Bradley has been formally stripped of his license to operate. The government freezes his last project for ethics violations. No fireworks, just a cold notice. For the first time, Alina hears his name and feels nothing. Cassian sprawls on a chaise in shark pajamas that night in the yard. Alina tucks a blanket around him and whispers, "Are you sad about the new name?" Cassian opens his eyes. "No, the old name was pretty. But the new one, it's like you named me again. Only this time I got to choose." Grayson comes out with an old guitar. "What do you want to hear?" he asks. "Mama's favorite," Cassian says. Grayson picks a ribbon of old jazz. Alina closes her eyes. Between the wind, the guitar, and the measure of her own heartbeat, she knows. The old life is over. The new one doesn't begin with marriage, and it doesn't end with revenge. It begins with freedom, and it's built on the simplest foundation of all, a conscious choice. A year later, the new house sits on the edge of Lake Pontchartrain, tucked between 2 old willows and a neat row of green poplars. Not a Whitmore-style mansion, Not a glossy penthouse. Just a hand-painted, two-story white wooden home with a terracotta roof, green shutters, and a long porch wide enough for 3 rocking chairs. They say the most beautiful house isn't the one with the fanciest furniture, but where you can hear your child laugh, smell cake drifting out from the kitchen, and know the person you love will walk in at 6. Alina Hartley, now Alina Monroe Hartley, stands in the kitchen, hands dusted with flour, humming an old jazz tune. Cassian, almost 8, does homework at the table, headphones on but eyes glued to the chocolate cake. His mother is glazing. Grayson Monroe, the man who once appeared quietly with a cup of coffee, now Alina's husband, steps in with a bundle of lavender. "I'm home," he says, "and I thought about that cake all through the meeting." Alina smiles, slips off her apron, and kisses his cheek. 3 weeks ago, they held a small lakeside wedding. Close friends only, Ruby in the front row, eyes brimming. Cassian carried the rings and declared, "I'm not giving these to anyone who hasn't played Lego with me at least 100 hours. Grayson raised a hand. 132. Laughter broke like sunshine. When it was time for vows, Alina said, "I won't swear to love you forever. Love is alive. It changes. But I swear I'll choose you each morning, because I believe home isn't where we're born, it's where we return." Today, that home is where Ruby's table has opened a 3rd location, with a portion of profits flowing to Cassian's bridge, funding training and startups for more than 40 single mothers. Cassian is writing his first picture book, illustrations and all. The Dragon Who Couldn't Fly But Could Love. Alina now teaches leadership and forgiveness for Black women entrepreneurs at Tulane, where she was once denied a scholarship for being insufficiently proper. One evening, the sunset burns like the caramelized edge of a custard. Alina sits on the porch with Grayson and Cassian, cocoa in hand, watching the light sink into the lake. "Where do you think you'll live someday?" Alina asks. Cassian thinks, then says, "Wherever I can build a house. But not with bricks, with the people I love." Grayson pulls them both close. Alina, head on his shoulder, feels a steadiness not of brick walls or steel beams, but of true love, quiet, unconditional, more durable than any oath shouted to the sky. She once thought her wedding had been ruined, but the real wedding had been unfolding slowly, day by day. Every dinner, every folded pajama, every wiped tear, every apology, every choice to love again. And the house? It wasn't built with money. No lawyer stamped its foundations. This house was built with love, and it does not fall. After settling into the home by Lake Pontchartrain, Alina Monroe Hartley found peace in a simple rhythm, baking in the mornings, listening to Cassian laugh in the afternoons, and leaning on Grayson's shoulder beneath the porch light at night. She understood true happiness isn't winning. It's no longer having to fight alone. Cassian grew up healthy and bright, uninterested in shares or the title of young heir. He loved writing stories and drawing dragons, and believed his mother was the real hero because she knew how to turn tears into strength. Meanwhile, Bradley, Cassian's biological father, lived quietly in Florida after losing everything. In a shabby rental, he wrote a letter to his son, not to win back affection, but to say, "Don't repeat my mistakes. Always choose what's right, even when it's hard." Alina kept the letter until her boy was old enough to read it. Camilla once strode into a sanctuary like a victor and became a single mother raising little Evelyn. She opened a dance class for under-resourced teens in Atlanta and taught her daughter that worth doesn't come from gloss, but from a heart that reaches others. Evelyn and Cassian grew up as friends, proof that the future doesn't have to be chained to their parents' wrongs. Grandma Ruby, though elderly, remained the soul of Ruby's table. She taught cooking and told the children a story of a jilted bride who chose to stand up, raise her child, and build an empire with her hands. That story became a lantern passed down. Alina and Grayson's marriage wasn't a fairy tale. Conflicts and tensions existed. What kept them was the daily decision again and again to apologize, listen, and keep rebuilding the house together. The Cassian's Bridge Fund spread across America, helping hundreds of single mothers start businesses. The press hailed Alina as the woman who chose again. She answered, "I'm not a superhero, just a mother who wants her child to know that falling isn't the end. It's a chance to rise differently." As an adult, Cassian chose not to become a CEO, but to write and make music. His debut, The Dragon Who Couldn't Fly But Could Love, was warmly received. At the launch, he said, "This is my mother's story. Because of her, I have wings." Alina sat in the front row, tears of joy sliding down, knowing her true legacy lived not in a company, but in her son's heart. One evening, the family gathered on the porch, Ruby in her rocker, Grayson strumming a guitar, Cassian reading a poem. Alina rested on her husband's shoulder and watched the lake burn crimson at sunset. She knew the house wasn't built of brick or steel, but of love, and it would stand for generations.